You are watching Leicester Till I Die TV.
Watch us on YouTube.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform.
Or ask your smart speaker
To play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Right, Chris.
All right. Way, let me take that off. Look at that. I'm still drunk. There we go. Good evening, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good night, goodbye. Hello. Happy New Year to you all. Welcome along. We're still here. Feeling a little bit older. Dave's got his tissues at the ready, so we're all safe to go. Hello, Mrs. Dave. How are we feeling? This is Leicester Till I Die TV, LTID TV, bringing you a review, as you can see there, of last season. Do you remember there was a certain year, 2014-15, I believe it was, when we spent Christmas and the New Year at the bottom of league, and 12 months later we were the top? Not quite like that, and we have had to drop down a division, but wow, I tell you what a year 2023 was. I mean, look at that. Was it a year of two halves? I think if ever there has been a year, a year when you can say that, it is this year. As bad as last year was, last season was, first half of the year, it's been completely the opposite, an absolutely brilliant second half of the season. Yes, we've dropped down a league, but look at when we went down to League One. It was a while ago, obviously. Would we be where we are now, as in, would we have sort of won the league, the FA Cup, got the promotion, had we not dropped down? I wonder if we would. I certainly think that we wouldn't have the players or necessarily even the manager that we've got now had we not dropped down a division. And sometimes it's good to take a step back to be able to take a couple of steps forward. Highfields is in. Good evening, Highfields. His witness protection scheme has taken him to Essex this evening. How are you, sir? And Mark Smith said, could do better. I think, I don't know how better we could be doing, Mark, but there we go. So before I bring my co-guests in this, or my co-presenters in this evening, what happened last year? Well, we saw Rodgers get sacked. We'll be looking at that later on. We saw Smith, Shakespeare and Terry come in. We got relegated. Enzo Maresca was appointed. We sold Maddison and Barnes for 80 million. We bought Fatu and Madivi Winks. And I've got Star there. I don't know who that is. I think I was still drunk when I was typing that. And we had the Christmas number 1. Yes, Sunit Sam Ryder couldn't manage. But that was the year very, very quickly. But we're going to take it a little bit further and into a bit more detail now. Nate, good evening. I didn't know you had, Nate. I didn't know you had. Never mind. Oh, come on. I think we're still all hungover. And somebody who's still got his tinsel out. Dirty old man. Let's bring him in and say hello to Dave. Dave, good evening, sir. Can't hear a damn word you're saying. Still can't. Hello.
I thought you controlled the volume.
That's it. Hello. We have connection.
I thought you controlled the volume.
Not at your end. No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. It's all a mystery to
have I
me.
controlled your volume?
Well, frequently.
I
How
was
are
going to
you?
say, yeah, as I say, you still got your tinsel out. The missus
Yeah,
must
yeah.
be
Well,
happy.
it's not 12th night yet.
It is a couple of days. It's a couple of
Yeah.
days. But as I said, I've had to take all
Absolutely.
mine down because the cleaner's coming in tomorrow. So
Ugh,
I want it being cleaned.
God,
Happy New Year
blimey.
to you.
You too, mate. You too. Sorry, I might if I cough and spluttering a bit. It came over me last night, and I can't get rid of it.
Will you please ask your good lady not to do that?
No,
I mean,
indeed.
I think I'm going to have to put a sex ban on you, aren't I? No sex 24 hours before a show.
Well, I think it's probably best.
I think it probably is. I think it probably is. Well, let's bring out. Well, between the three of us, I don't know about 2023. We could probably all remember 1963. Craig,
Oh,
hello, sir. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Chris. Hi, Dave. Happy
Hi,
New
Craig.
Year and Happy
You
New
too.
Year, everyone else. And no, I can't remember 63, Chris. But thanks for grouping me in there.
Coldest winter of all. Coldest
I
winter
was
of
going
all
to go
time.
back to 1953, but I thought, no, that's probably only for Dave.
No. 63 was the coldest winter we had between December and March. 63, I think it was, or might have been 63, 64, where there was no games.
He remembers.
Only
That
'cause I lost-
might be why I was born in February 64.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you would have been. We lost our cat in that winter. Came back, but
Yeah, define lost.
Craig,
it went missing, and I found it in a field about a mile away.
Craig, it's going to be a long night, I feel.
Yeah, it is. I've got to go. What time is it now? Whatever it is, I've got to go in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's the darts.
Right. Ronald is in. Good evening, Ronald. How the devil are you? Right. So we're going to start, obviously, back in January. Good place to start a year, isn't it? And look at our transfer window, as was then. Craig, start with Christensen was in for 12 million from Copenhagen, Sutar from Stoke City, Tete on loan. Now I know we managed to find the one bad Brazilian in the world, and we signed him. But Sutar, it doesn't look like he's going to be staying because we're looking like we're signing another centre back. And Christensen, well, I think he just wants out according to the papers now.
Yeah. I mean, Tete did have a. I was lucky enough to be at the game against Villa when we beat them 4-2. I think it was the penultimate team to beat them at home. I think Arsenal beat them just after us, and then they haven't lost since. So that makes that result look great. But he had a good game there, and that was it, basically. Yeah. I think.
Nate's older than he makes out because he remembers is it the Four Seasons song?
December,
back in 63. And LDH is in. Hello, LDH. And transfers out. Perez, we're all sad to see him go, but we never saw him again after that. Albrighton went on loan, came back and is now part of the current squad, Dave. And Apuku, who we signed and we sent straight out to OA Cleveland, and he's still there. We forget him, don't we, when it comes to strikers that are available, because we could call him back.
Who?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's been doing, to be honest. I know I think Leuven are struggling, or they were struggling last time I looked. And
let's ask our Belgian expert, Dave.
No, he's not really settled in very well. Struggling for match time, and as you say, we're struggling near the bottom of the table. So disappointing all round.
I think they've just won the first game actually, but now they're going into their winter break.
Best thing could happen.
Yeah, it was a pretty. I mean, we needed some signings, didn't we, Dave? After the way the summer window had turned out, but
but they're not inspiring, are they? When you look back, I thought Christensen was the best, but I don't know. I don't know what his problem is, really.
I liked Christensen. I think if you watch the games this season with the way that JJ plays, you can see the problem that Christensen had, because JJ rarely gets forward. Obviously he did at Cardiff when he just hung around the edge of the box. I thought I'll just loop that one in.
Yeah.
But he rarely makes those bombing runs, and I don't think Christensen would have been able to stop himself. He was that kind of player who just wanted to gallop down the wing. So I think he's a really good player, and I would have loved to have seen him stay, but I don't think he fits into this team the way that Maresca wants him to play.
No.
What do you think, guys, is up with that's Dave, this Sutar? I mean, he was brought in 50 million. He looked decent. I don't think he's particularly done anything wrong. I can't remember a game we lost because of him, or he had a real stinker any more than any other player in the team. It reminds me very much of Maguire. He does get forward. Why do you think Enzo doesn't like him? Because he's talking that the rumours are we're after another centre back when we've got him available.
I can only assume it's his distribution. Can't think of anything. Although he did miss a sitter. Was it at Brighton or somewhere? I can't remember now. He's a bit clumsy, isn't he? That's the only thing, and he can't pass the ball very well for the way he wants. So that's all I can think of. He's a pretty solid guy to have at the back when you're under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, he's a tall guy, Craig. He does it for Australia. He seems to net regularly for them.
I like him, and I think he's a good person to have in the squad. And I don't think it's a case of Maresca not liking him. I think you could say the same about Cody. We all thought Cody was going to be a regular starter, but the way that he sets his team up, he's got Farce in there who's got the pace and the recovery pace, along with JJ and Ricardo when they make the back four, and he's got Vestergaard who's the best distributor of the ball. I don't think it's a fact of him not liking him. I just don't think there's a place, sadly. And I would imagine if he's letting him go, it's to do the player a favour, because he wants to play regular at his age. It's different with Cody, who's towards the end of his career, but somebody like Suter, who's wants to keep his place in the national team, probably needs to be playing. And a loan move wouldn't be bad, because I can't see Vestergaard being with us, to be honest. If we get promoted, I'll still say if till it's mathematically.
This is Leicester.
I can imagine another ball playing centre half coming in, and I think Suter would probably be an asset in the Premier League more. So as a replacement, if you just want a tall, commanding centre half to head balls out the box. So I don't think he's a bad player to hang on to, and I think a half-season loan might suit everybody.
No, I agree. I like him, and unlike that, and I'm pleased with what's happened with Vestergaard, because I think the way that I don't think we should have signed him, or Rodgers should have signed him, because he wasn't his type of player, Dave. But I think with Sutar, we all say, don't we, with Yannick, however good he's playing, he's 6'6", and when he jumps, he's 5'6". Well, at least with Sutar, he does get up and can head the ball.
I question that about Vestergaard, whether he didn't play to Rodgers' style. I mean, we were passing the ball around a lot at the back. We were trying to thread balls through for Vards and people like that, and I'd have thought it'd have been ideal even then. But something happened. They obviously didn't get on very well, because he knew how he could play at Southampton and how he did. He knew his weaknesses. And Southampton fans told us his weaknesses, but he still paid money for him. I don't get it. I think
Brendan
panicked.
I think Brendan just preferred Evans, and there wasn't room for two slowish players in there. For me, I would have played him over Evans, but as soon as I think the problem was as well that he didn't start particularly well, and then in that season, in 2 seasons, I guess, where we weren't doing great, the crowd got on his back a little bit. And I think the whole environment got toxic for him on and off the pitch. So, but fair play to him. He's come back and shown everybody what he can do. We all know his limitations, but when you ask him to do a job, then he can do it very well.
Indeed. Right. I'm just saying, just before we move on, Christensen here has said today, I probably experienced the hardest way to go abroad. I joined a dysfunctional team with a coach under Brendan Rodgers under pressure, who was then fired. I was in a difficult position as a young and newly acquired player, and I suddenly had to help save the club. Can't argue with that, certainly with the dysfunctional bit. But let's go into January as the season. Then
that's not a way of getting back in, though, is it?
Well, I think he knows he's on his way out. To be honest,
sell me now.
Yeah. So January we started off with a loss against Fulham. Who knew? We managed to scrape a 1-0 win past Gillingham. We got knocked out of the EFL Cup by Newcastle 2-0, which after the hounding they gave us just after Christmas was probably the better of the two results. We managed to beat Nottingham Forest 2-0, so I suppose every cloud. We drew with Brighton. We scraped past Walsall. And at the end of that month, Craig, we were in 14th place. Were we not panicking at that point, do you think?
Probably not. I remember the one thing I remember about the Gillingham FA Cup game was watching it on TV and me stating Casey McAteer will never be a player. You know,
none of them looked good there, did they? To be fair,
yeah, none of them did. I think Nelson played in that game as well. But no, 14th. You know, it's like just chugging along, really, isn't it? But I don't think we were pulling up any trees other than the Forest one. So yeah, but nothing too alarming at that point. It all sort of turned, and I think that was half the problem. You know, if we'd have been down in 17th or 18th, we may have got our arse in gear a little bit quicker than we actually did.
I do think, though, Dave, we've said this, and I think it's true, though. Bloody World Cup threw a spanner in the works, didn't it? Because we'd seemed to have a good run before the World Cup, although when you look at it, it wasn't against teams that we would have expected to lose anyway. You know, we didn't sort of create any shocks, but the World Cup came along, and that kind of, if you like, brought Brendan and the team possibly some time. So at the end of January, he goes, well, you know, everybody's been away for the World Cup, and you know they're back now. It was almost like an excuse, wasn't it?
Well, I think beating Forest 4-0 was any excuse he needed. I mean, just that was it. It survived on that. If we'd have lost to Forest, it'd have been gone. It'd have been gone by, well, straight afterwards.
Yeah.
But he kept doing this. He kept putting some results together, and he got away with it again. Then we'd lose a few more. Then he put another run of results, but it stopped happening after that. Yes. We all got fed up with it, and we did. I mean, the football was awful. And I can't believe people moan now about it. Okay, it's here to serve a purpose, but then it was awful. Yes. We were making mistakes. We had players in the wrong position. We had, just nobody seemed interested to me. And I didn't just watch the game when I was there. I watched other players off the ball as well, and they didn't seem bothered. I admit I'd have picked Vestergaard probably instead of Evans, but Evans didn't.
Are you on about Premier League defender Johnny Evans?
He didn't play, did he? I can't remember him playing that much. He came on. I
mean, for Manchester United now.
Oh, that one, oh God. Well, let's be honest. It's not doing them much good, is it? But he came. Is it one game was that? He came on in the 89th minute and got injured. Something like that rings a bell.
It does ring a bell with me. That
that kind of said it all, really. And it was just a joke all the way through. It was a joke. From day one.
I've got to say to you, Craig, because your main complaint about Johnny Evans was that he stood on the ball and held the ball up. Yeah. Well, isn't that exactly what Vestergaard's doing?
Yeah, pretty much. But I think you can see that there's actually a plan behind it, rather than nobody wants the ball, so I'm just going to stand here. And
he can pick out a let's be honest with you, a decent pass at the end of it.
Oh, Vestergaard?
Yes.
Yeah, he can. I mean, Johnny Evans did now and again, but
he did. Yeah,
but just not enough. I think the problem was, he looked worse because there was no one in front of him really coming and demanding the ball. You had Madders, but apart from that, it was all very static in front of him. At least now, you have got players dropping in to get the ball, and so there does seem to be some kind of plan.
Yeah. Well, moving into February, Craig, I'll start with you because you mentioned this game earlier, and it started off pretty good. 4-2 against Villa away from home, we won. And then we lost to Spurs. Well, sorry, we beat Spurs, I should say, 4-1. Everything suddenly well, come on, everything's back to normal. Man United then beat us 3-0. And we kind of said, well, all right, it's Man United. Arsenal got a 1-0 win against us. And we said, well, we'd lost 5 against them earlier in the season, so 1's not bad. And then we went to Championship Blackburn in the FA Cup. And they kind of brought us back down to earth with a bang. Good start.
It was down here, wasn't it?
But that was King Power, yeah.
It was. And I think that was the game where things changed a little bit. You could almost accept losing to Man U at the time and Arsenal.
Yeah.
Both teams up there in the top 6 challenging and whatever. But the fact that Blackburn came and not only beat us, they played us off the park, if I remember rightly. Their football was sort of fresh, exciting, the kind of football we're playing now. The movement, they'd made a load of changes. We made some, but they looked head and shoulders above us. And I wondered whether that was the game that knocked the confidence not only of the players, but also the fans. And then we started questioning whether we actually had the ability within this team to get the results we needed. And I think that was a pivotal game.
Dave, the 2 managers that were before Enzo sort of came in left field and everybody was being linked, the 2 managers that I wanted was my first choices were McKenna at Ipswich, who's proving, he knows what he's doing, and Thomason from Blackburn following that result. I mean, we ended the month on 14th, but it kind of was that the moment for you when you began to think, hang on again, here we go again?
No, Brentford at home was the moment I thought that. Seriously, this first game. But Villa, it was.
So basically, the season was no surprise to you.
No, it wasn't in the end. I tried to pretend it was all going to be all right. But that Brentford game at home just summed up the mentality of the manager. I think it was a hot day, and he said our players were it was too hot, we were tired. He made 1 substitution. They made 5. So that to me was the start of it, and then it just carried on. But looking at those results, I mean, Tottenham we murdered. That was a brilliant game. We played wide, we attacked them. We should have had 5, actually. I think Harvey Barnes had 1 disallowed, fractionally offside. Man United, I reckon we could have won that. We were unlucky. There were some bad decisions made on that one. There was a tackle that was horrendous, studs up above the knee, which wasn't punished at all.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
And the first half, we actually murdered them. So we could have had that one. Arsenal, well, we just sat back, which is what we tended to do against better sides at home. We did it with Man City, we did it with Man United. And we could have beat Arsenal. But we chose not to. Blackburn, I didn't go. I didn't even see it for some bizarre reason. I think I'm pissed off by then. I believe Blackburn showed us how to play football. And we took it like a top side playing a lower side in the FA Cup.
But Dave, you look at that month.
That's not Leicester.
You look at us that month, and how can you go from beating Tottenham 4-1 one week to losing, all right, and 1 was home, 1 was away, but losing 3-0 to Manchester United the next week, which I can't remember the exact squad, but I'm pretty
Trust me,
sure
we could have beat Man United.
The same squad.
Yeah, we could have beat Man United. We were unlucky. Not many times I've said this last year we were unlucky, but we were then, and we were the better side for at least 45 minutes. But we didn't score, and that was the problem. But to go to lose at home to Blackburn, I think, that kind of made me think, well, I thought we might get out of it with these 2 false runs we had, but no way now.
I think it showed you. I think that game showed you how fragile the confidence was in the camp. That you had those 2 great results. As you said, we could have got something at Man United. Things went against us and we lost. Lose to Arsenal, but that Blackburn one, I think just as I said, showed the fragility. We talked for like a season and a half, Chris, haven't we, about the fact that this team didn't have a backbone.
Yeah.
So when things go against you, it's very difficult to get it back and get that confidence back. And
do you know what this team didn't have last season, Craig?
Sorry?
You know what this team didn't have last season that it could have really have done with?
It didn't have a quarterback, did it?
Exactly. Yes, quite right. It was that type of player we needed. But look, Craig, I asked you the same question I asked, Dave. Does that month from our season up? Villa, who weren't a bad side at the time, 4-2. Tottenham, 4-1. Going to lose to Blackburn 2-1. And, you're saying it's about the fragility, but that to me is our season in 1 month.
Definitely that Villa game. I was at that Villa game, and as I said, and I think we went behind in that game as well quite early on. Ollie Watkins scored, so we had it within us, and we were playing sort of bright attacking football, getting numbers forward. I think because we'd got the fullbacks that we had, they just naturally went forward. Christensen had a great game, bombed forward. Tete was there. And we looked like a team that could do something, and then you get a couple of results and all that hope almost sort of is frittered away. And that, Rodgers won't take any of the blame on himself. He'd look to blame players. So, you can only imagine what was going on behind the scenes as he pointed the fingers at players. And players don't play for managers that they don't trust.
No, or don't like. In fairness, because anybody remember what the earth-shattering news was that happened at Leicester in February? Oh, he's got his glasses on ready.
I have. In February,
yes, something you look back and you think, why? Let me put you out of your misery because we could still be here.
Did we give a new contract to someone?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Do you remember who it was?
Johnny Evans?
I would have loved it to have been either Evans or Amati.
It wasn't fucking Amati, was it?
One of those two.
I think we get Vardy a new contract, which you could understand a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was Everson, a 5.5 year extension. I'm not just saying, when you do an extension, it's usually 2 years, isn't it? It's 3 years. I mean, at that point, Danny Ward must have thought, fuck this, I'm off. A 5.5 year extension. So at the moment, if we can't get rid of him, Dave, we're going to be paying Everson. He could just sit there. And we've had a few goalkeepers in the past that have done that, haven't we?
We've got 3 now, haven't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, in fairness to somebody like Jupokovic, he was always there as cover, wasn't he? In fairness. Conrad Logan, he earned a good fair bit off us and hardly ever smelt the grass. But a 5.5 year contract, Dave, does that not sum up not just the manager, but the board? Before the summer break, they were getting everything wrong, weren't they?
I can only think that they were getting inquiries about him, and he wasn't a bad goalkeeper. He isn't a bad goalkeeper. I was still not sure whether he should be number 2 or number 3. I haven't seen enough of the other guy, but maybe that was it. Maybe they wanted to do what you would, Chris, sign him up on a long-term contract and get some decent money for him. So it's a difficult argument, isn't it? Should he have seen it out? Should he have been given away on the cheap? Or I don't know.
Had he not, Craig, had some good loan spells out.
Yeah,
and it looked at that point. Look, as much as I was Danny Ward's banner boy. I thought we'd signed him. 12 million for a number 2 goalkeeper was a lot of money. He'd always performed well in the cup games when needed. He was a good penalty stopper as well. But it all went wrong for him. Not just him, the team, and I think his confidence was totally shot. And I think Rodgers had to make a change. Everson came in, and I don't think he was brilliant, but he didn't do any worse. And was it a case of, well, look, we've lost Schmeichel, he's going to be our number 1 moving forward? Was that the thinking behind it, do you think?
I think so. I mean, he'd got the shirt at that point. He was the number 1. towards the end of the season. It was his shirt to lose, and he lost it because, Maresca came in and wanted a football playing goalkeeper, and he didn't fit the bill. I mean, he was a good keeper. He just didn't fit the way that we wanted to play, and so I part of you can understand, because goalkeepers, you don't want goalkeeper. You want a goalkeeper, you want a settled goalkeeper, and you want him to be your number one, and that's it. And we'd had enough goalkeepers. It does seem a little bit ridiculous in hindsight that we gave him that long. I don't think, I can't imagine that him and his agent were demanding that length of contract to stay. Maybe he was. But yeah, in hindsight.
Were we that bad as a club in that time, Craig, that we were just desperate to hold on to anybody that was half decent?
I don't think it's desperate, but as you said, he'd had some very, very good loan spells. He was highly rated, and he didn't do that bad for us, really. He just, his weakness is with his feet, and the modern day goalkeeper has to be decent with his feet, unless you're Everton.
Say feet or brain.
Just look at Arsenal's problems with goalkeepers at the moment. Ramsdale, an England number 3 or number 2, can't even get a game, and they won't even sell him. So anyway, moving on to March, which was pretty much a short month. I presume we had an international break. We started it off, Dave. We lost to Southampton 1-0. I mean, the worst team in the league, and they did the double over us. We then lost to Chelsea 3-1, and we managed to come out with it at the end with a point against Brentford. But we were down in 17th at the end of March.
That Southampton game, that was the one where he headed against the bar in the last minute to equalise, Suter. It was awful. It was awful. And then Madders came out afterwards and said, we had enough chances to win 5-1. Yeah, but you didn't. We lost 1-0 to the worst team in the league. And I happened to be there with a couple of Southampton mates as well, which made it even worse. And they were down. They'd relegated themselves by then. All the people we spoke to, it's a lovely place to go, isn't it, Southampton? Because they've got all the drinks outside and you all chat with each other. There's no real bars. It's like all portable stuff. And it was, everyone, they were saying, oh, we're down. There's no way we're going to stay up. We're terrible. And I didn't like to tell them how bad we were. But that was awful. That's probably the worst game, one of the worst games I saw all season.
Fair point, Craig, that Dave made there. Was that the game as well that you thought, this is it?
No, as I say, it was the one before. It was the Blackburn game, the FA Cup, which was the game before these two bad results. And I think it was just, I think they'd gone into that game, lacking in confidence from the Blackburn defeat, and then that just sort of deepened it, I think. And we got ourselves into a hole. As you can see, we started the month in 14th, finished it in 17th on the back of 3 more games. So it shows
had a nightmare that day.
Yeah, it was all crunching up. Teams were bunching up a little bit, and that's all it took. 1 point out of 9, and
I mean, when you look at that month, Craig, you've got to say, if you'd have come out of that month with maybe 4 points, you beat Southampton, lose to Chelsea, which again, you'd probably expect to, and then draw with Brentford, that would have probably been acceptable.
Yeah, probably, and it'd probably been enough to keep us up, to be honest, in the long run. But I think at that time, as soon as you went a goal behind, you couldn't see us pulling it back. That was the level of confidence. We needed to get a goal up to try and have something to cling on to. And but as you said, as long as Madders was coming out and saying, as long as we keep playing like that, we'll be fine. Which I think they just played that recording after every game.
I think he had the same script writer as Rodgers, or any manager in that position. Because you look at any manager when they're fighting relegation or they're about to lose the job, Wayne Rooney, and you're thinking they all tend to stay the same. I'll stick with you for this one, Craig. Are you ready for April?
Yeah, go on then.
I tell you what, you might you might want to look away from your screens now if you don't want scaring. But here we go for April. We started off with a loss against Palace. We lost against Aston Villa. We lost against Bournemouth. Again, they did the double over us. We lost against Manchester City. Now, out of those first 4 games, Manchester City, you could say, well, maybe that was the only one we under normal circumstances, would have expected to lose. We managed to somehow get a win against Wolverhampton, by which time we'd got a new manager, of course. And then we got a draw with Leeds. And I think that Wolves game, Craig, wasn't that their first game for the new threesome?
Yeah, I think it might have been. Yeah, it was actually, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, again, you would have looked at those four defeats. You would have looked at before, and you thought, right, okay, you might get 4 or 5 points out of them, and we got bugger all. And the writing's definitely on the wall, and finally the board caught up with it. But then, and then you get that lovely Leicester City false dawn, that we like to throw in now and again. Yeah. A battling victory, I guess that you could say, rather than anything of any substance. But then, just not nice viewing, is it? That
it isn't. And Dave, when you look at that, had the board, and all right, I know Top felt guilty because he could not back Rodgers in the summer window. Had he come out and said that to everybody rather than save it until his notes on the transfer deadline day game against Man United, we would have all sort of kind of understood it, I'm sure, if because of the FFP rules and what have you. But if they'd made that decision earlier, I think we could have certainly beaten Palace and Bournemouth, maybe got a draw with Villa, and again, like Craig just said, that could have been that was to Dave.
Yeah, I don't know. I was in Australia.
I thought you were actually thinking about it. I thought you couldn't hear me. I didn't realise
you did freeze a couple of times, but I was just taking the moment. I was in Australia for April, so
oh wow! Well,
I'm getting up at stupid times of the day. No, I don't think. In
fairness, you probably had the lucky side of the deal, there, didn't you?
The problem was that at the time, everyone was saying we can't afford to sack him because of the 14 million or whatever it was payoff. So everyone was torn, do we stay with him? Do we do this? I still don't buy into the fact he didn't know we didn't have any transfer money. I don't buy into that. That's his own excuse. He's doing the same at Celtic now. Oh, we need to sign a new striker with this, that and the other. I mean, that's what he does. That's what all managers do. That's what Rooney did before the board saw the light. So I don't buy into it. I think it was purely 14 million or 140 million or whatever it was, and said we can't afford to get rid of this guy. We want him to walk, which allegedly in the end he did.
You see, I'm going to come to you on that one, Craig. I don't know what your thoughts are, because I have to say, Dave, and I respect you, I disagree with you on there.
Of course you do.
I don't think he knew. I do think Top. I think Top did hang him out to dry a little bit in the summer, reckon? And I don't think it was a case of we can't afford to sack him, because it would probably cost us less to sack him than it has cost us to go down.
Let me come back on you that then. If that's the case, then that was a terrible mismanagement by the board, and terrible management by Rodgers for not having a meeting and saying, "Look, this is what I want. Can we do it?"
Well,
that's what
again, I can only go off. I mean, I did a thing with Rob Tanner of The Athletic, and he said that he'd gone off on his summer holidays, Rodgers, making deals, and we're going to sign you. We'll speak when we come back. All this, that, and the other, not knowing that he hadn't. The rug had been pulled out under his feet. Craig, which side of the argument are you placed?
I think there's a little bit of both, to be honest. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, in hindsight, maybe we should have just bought all the players and then taken the 10-point hit this season. That's how it goes, isn't it? we might have been all right. But I think there was mismanagement on both sides. I think, but Rodgers, was trying to Teflon it, and if he'd have just come out and almost, you've seen other managers use it positively, and get a camaraderie and backs against the wall. We'll pull it together. We'll all pull in the same direction. But he was Tefloning to try and protect his own image, and I think that was his downfall. It doesn't surprise me that the company, King Power, decided not to invest that much. We none of us really know what was going on at the company at that time. We know that figures probably come out in business. Figures come out a little bit later, so they'd come out after the back of COVID. It may have been worse than they expected them to be honest. And then they had to cut the cloth accordingly. And it's the football club. They've got to keep King Power going, So I think there was mismanagement all round, and I think the PR side of it was probably the worst part of it, because fans will rally round if they know what's actually going on. The fact that they were in the dark and we were having to guess, and that just leads to speculation. And in the days of social media, speculation is the last thing that you want.
I can remember doing a show. I did a show at the time in IMO, in my opinion, and I said at the time, had Top, and I'm going to say this because I think at that point, had he had the balls to come out and say to the fans at the start of the summer, unfortunately, you're going to have to bear with us. I want to get us back into Europe, but if we do, we're going to be hammered by FFP because we're on a warning from them. Because we only just got through previously because of COVID. So we are going to have to cut the spending. We've got a large squad. Had he done all that, the fans would have gone, trust your Top. Yeah, not a problem. But the fact that he left it until his programme notes, like I say, on transfer deadline day, which was obviously, he couldn't do anything about it then, by which time, as you've just said, you've had 2 months of fans on social media and on shows like this going, what the fuck's going on? He was he caused all that sort of, I think bad atmosphere.
Two problems though, Chris, aren't there? If you tell people you've got shed loads of money because you just sold somebody for 100 million, you're going to be paying higher prices. If you tell them you got no money, people are coming after your players. I'm not sure how you win either way. I agree with you. The fans deserve to know. I mean, we pay the money, but I'm not sure how it's a win.
I don't think it's ever been the case of we haven't had the money.
No.
Because I think when they came out and said, it was almost like having a fire sale at the King Power. But they didn't never come and say we haven't got the money. We just couldn't buy because we're trying to stick to FFP rules. Now I know
there's clever enough people at that football club who should have been able to spin that and say, this is the type of club we are. We play by the rules. We do things right. FFP rules means that we can't spend what we thought we were hoping to. Therefore, we're going to have to pull together and get the maximum that we can out of this squad.
We're not Chelsea.
Yeah.
So we don't
exactly.
Or Man
Everton,
City.
Manchester City,
Forest.
We finished April in 18th. I'm probably thinking like, oops a daisy, how many games have we got left? Well, going into May, not many games left. And can I just say, we haven't played Leeds twice in 2 months. I just didn't update the the thing properly. Look, it's been New Year. I've hung over. I've been pissed. What more do you want? So we started off with a 2-2 draw against Everton. We could have, and we probably should have won that game had Maddison not decided to showboat and try and impress everybody around, that was watching with a move to a bigger club and try and take a penalty against somebody who knew exactly what he was doing when he read his water bottle. If he'd left that to, I had never known Maddison take a penalty up until that point, and I have to say, what was Dean Smith doing, allowing him to, and all this we don't have a set penalty taker. Well, if that's it, then Dean Smith, you deserve not to have a club, because every manager should have a designated penalty taker, 1, 2, and even 3, depending, if penalty on the pitch that day. That, when you look at it, would probably have kept us up if that penalty had gone in. But and I'm not blaming Maddison, saying that the whole, it was his fault we got relegated, because it obviously wasn't. But yeah, you can see that's a little bit of a annoyance with me.
But then Maddison is the best dead ball player we've got, or we had.
But he's not a penalty taker. And even now, I mean, I did the watch.
You're talking about Bottle then? Talking about him not having the bottle?
He's just not. He is not a penalty. When I say he's not a penalty taker, how many penalties apart from that one have you seen him take?
No, I agree.
I'm not saying penalty shootouts, because obviously that's different. And I will say even now, and I said it against who we? Oh God, I am hungover. Who did we just beat? Cardiff.
Yeah.
Cardiff, Huddersfield.
Huddersfield. And I think there was a free kick, and I went, God, this is Maddison's area, to sort of explain where it was on the commentary. So, yes, don't get me wrong, I love these free kicks, but there was, I'm sure there was a couple of strikers on the pitch and what have you, who, even Tielemans.
I think, again, it's a high side. I wonder whether he used the same technique for his penalties as he does for his free kicks. You're taking free kicks from 20, 25 yards out. The ball has enough time to move and swerve away. If you use that from the penalty spot, it's not going to move. And that's why it looked pretty central, to be honest. Maybe you should have asked if he could took it from the edge of the area.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Dean Smith coming out and going, I haven't got a set penalty taker?
Well, it's ridiculous.
Should have kept his mouth shut. Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. I think the three of them had nothing to lose, did they?
No.
They come in, they're well paid, I'm sure, with nothing to lose.
Yeah, and on a good bonus had they managed to keep us up. But we came away with a point.
To be fair, Shaky had history with us, so that was probably
of course.
He had more.
I think that was to placate the crowd a little bit. I think and it did. He did have that relationship with some of the players, so you would have thought maybe that would have given us a boost. But short-lived.
That said, though, we got a point. We then went and played Fulham.
Oh, that was awful.
What happened? Somebody tell me. What happened? I mean,
nothing happened.
Wasn't it?
Nothing
8 goals.
happened,
You do realise, Chris, that you're wasting about 3 months therapy that everyone's had by dragging this all up again.
Indeed. It's good to talk, though. My therapist has said it's good to talk and get it out.
Anybody got any chocolate or something like that?
What have I got? Have I still got April up there?
Yeah.
Let me bring May up.
No, don't.
And of course, we lost to Liverpool 3-0. We got a draw against Newcastle, which, after the way that they had treated us,
that wasn't enough,
or dealt with us in the previous 2 games, wasn't a bad result at Newcastle. Of course, we beat West Ham on the last day of the season, but it wasn't to be. Ignore Leeds, like I say, that's just finished. And that was left over. I didn't take that off. And we finished the position in 18th. I just want to say, David, thank you so very much, sir. Very, very kind of you. You're a gentleman. Thank you. Now, that will help the therapy. Appreciate that.
What was the point?
These days. I mean, some may up for me, Craig.
Just a sad state of affairs, really, wasn't it? It's. I mean, you look at those, and there's enough games there that we could have been able to get out of it if we'd have been playing anywhere near the level that we should have been with the players that we had. And at the end of it, I think it comes down to a manager who was inept, a manager coming in who didn't really have time to convince the players that he was going to be there next season as well. So, you're playing for someone who's going to bugger off. And then a lack of confidence. And I don't care whatever level you're at. If you're at the top of the league or the bottom of the league, if you're lacking in confidence, you're nowhere near the player that you are. You play nowhere near your potential because you don't want the ball. When you do get the ball, you try and give it back as quickly as you can. And I think that's it when we managed to sort of sleepwalk our way into relegation.
I think that showed in the Everton game, didn't it, Craig?
Yeah.
absolutely no confidence at all. I mean, we were lucky to get away with 2-2, I think, in the end.
Yeah.
And we should have cruised it.
Yeah.
Dave, that's a very good point that Craig's made, and I'll ask you this. We said, sleepwalked.
Yeah.
We went down like a team who's not using Duracell batteries. In the
It
fact,
was just-
it kind of slowly happened. There's no sort of, last minute, tears or anything like that, because I think we just all expected it, didn't we?
I don't know. The West Ham game, I was still hopeful.
Well, during that game, we were up, weren't we, for a period of time, and it was
Yeah.
Everton getting that.
Well, we didn't know what was going on, did we? Because kept hearing cheers coming out of the cop, and I thought, Christ,
That
Everton
was
are
the West
losing.
Ham fans. I know a West Ham fan, and that was the West Ham fans trying to
It
wind
sounded
him
like it was coming from our end. Oh, they right, okay.
Yeah.
But nobody knew what was going on. I couldn't get a signal or anything, or even any data on it on the phone.
Yeah.
It was hopeless. But I think Newcastle away, we should have gone for it. I said it at the time, and I know now. We didn't go for it. We got unlucky. We could have had a goal. Was it Dennis Pratt at the end, or no? It was
Castagna.
Castagna, wasn't it? At the end, could have scored, but even so, we left it too late to even go for it. And I'd rather have lost that having a go, especially
Exactly. That's what fans want. See that you're up for the fight.
Because it was out of our hands then, and that was too
I'm going
late.
to say, when it comes down to the last game, and you said then, Craig, that we were up for, we were staying up for 50 or 60 minutes, if not longer. When you're relying on another team, and we were relying on Bournemouth, in fairness, all hope has gone when you are relying on other teams. But what Everton had that we didn't have, as Michael has said a couple of times there, the players had no fight in them. I felt like the Everton players did.
I'll tell you what they also had as well, and I don't want to do this, but you have to say that Everton didn't have a fan base that turned against their team either, and sadly we did. The fans did turn against the team. They weren't there trying to operate as the 12th man, and those two things go together. So you can't blame the fans, because if you see the fight on the pitch, then the fans will back it, and as Dave said, having a go at Newcastle, coming out and really having a go in those last few games, the fans will respond to that if players are flying into challenges and giving it everything. And Everton were, that I don't think that Everton team had more talented players than us. They just had more.
Let me come back to you on that then, Craig. Do you, and this is a question, I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but is that because the Everton fans had another victim or another target that they could throw their hatred and annoyance at, as in Shaqiri? Is it Shaqiri, the owner?
Maybe, but I think they had less talented players. I think our players, too many of our players, thought we are too good to go down, and that their more talent, would see them through. And I think Everton realised that they had to play as a team, and they didn't play that well, Everton, but they just battled and they made the most of the opportunities that they had. So the crowd will get behind that. I think we didn't see that, and therefore it's difficult. And that's probably the most frustrating thing as a fan, and that's why the fans got frustrated with the team, that they didn't see the fight. That every fan will say, as long as players give everything on the pitch, they will forgive lack of talent, because every fan would willingly swap places and they would run around.
Let me ask Dave this then. Did we have the players and they just weren't being picked? The right players? Because we had Tielemans that was being picked no matter how awful he was, because Rodgers had favourites.
But I don't know who could have come in instead. I mean, he's a world-class player. Why wasn't he performing? That has to be the question. Was he not fit? Was he not motivated? Who's motivating him? They had Sean Dyche. I mean, Christ, he frightens me to death on the telly. So I can imagine what he does to their players. That's what got him through. We'd have had somebody with passion at the helm. We'd have stayed up. We wouldn't have needed to worry for the last 5-6 games. But we didn't have, we had nobody with passion. And talking about the fans, Craig, I noticed the away fans are always brilliant generally, but I did notice on a lot of the away matches after 60, 65 minutes, they turned against them badly. Not just discontent, it was vicious.
Yeah.
Only by, I don't know, about 10, 15% of them, but they were very loud and vicious.
Yeah, the vocal, yeah.
Yeah. And say Iheanacho at, was it at Southampton? Or it might have even been Brighton. I can't remember which one. I mean, his head never came above his shoulders. He just lost it then. He lost
That's it. It becomes a vicious circle because you don't want the ball because you know that you misplace a pass or whatever, the fans are going to be on your back, and it becomes that sort of spiral downwards.
I think it might have
got to a point where there was probably nothing we could have done to stop it.
No, every ball that came to him, he had about 3 good chances he normally put away. He's just hopeless, and you could see the crowd had got to him big time because they were kicking against us that second half. Horrendous.
Craig, was it? I mean,
wrong light, love.
We had oops, a daisy.
Thank
Can you hear me, mother? Yeah, there you go. It's all hold hands.
Can't get the
all hold hands and speak to the dead. Dave, how you doing? So, Craig, are we? I mean, we didn't have a huge pond to go fishing in when we did finally get rid of Brendan Rodgers. Was Dean? I mean, all right, Dean Smith. I don't think he was a bad option, to be honest with you. And the fact that as a package, had Dean Smith come on his own, we might have all gone, eh. But the fact that he had Shaky with him, like Dave said earlier, who we all knew and we all love, and then John Terry, love him or hate him, he's one of the best Premier League defenders. And let's be honest with you, as soon as he came in, his first words almost literally were, "What the bloody hell is Soyuncu doing training with the youth teams?" It wasn't a bad choice, was it? But it's a bit like Red Adair. Whoever came in, could anybody have kept us up?
No, I mean, you look at it and you think, it's not a bad, team. That I think the problem was they didn't have long enough. As a defensive coach, you need a little bit of time. You would say that, for instance, Kolo Toure needed 5 years to get that back line to work better, and he was only there like 4 years, so he couldn't do anything. So Terry can do it. I mean, you got to ask the question: why don't you just give it Shaky? He was manager before. He managed in the Champions League. Why not just give it to him and use the other staff members that you've got there? Sometimes there's too many new voices, and it's difficult, for players to take it on board because what you're doing. So half the team will listen to, the new manager Dean Smith, and you take the defenders away and they're listening to John Terry. I think it was all just a bad mismanagement the whole way through the season. And I know hindsight is a great thing. If we'd have won a couple of games, got a few more points, Maddison scores the penalty, we'll all be saying it was a great decision, well done, move on. But we didn't.
I don't know who would have picked at the time, though, do you? I couldn't think of anybody that inspired me to keep. No. It was too late in the season, as Chris said earlier. Yeah, right. It was too late in the season.
He's been linked with Birmingham. What?
Yeah, well, good luck to them. They deserve him. But we left it. We left it too late. If we'd have done it 3 months earlier or 6 months earlier, maybe at the World Cup, we should have done it then. But he got 2 fluke results, didn't he? Before that. Yeah. Then we got half a chance because you can see something a bit more permanent. This was always going to be a stopgap for half a dozen games, and then cheers, lads. We'll get somebody better. So it was all. You're right, Craig. It was just bad management all the way through. If you run a business like that, you go bust.
Yeah. Scott says, does the panel think maybe the players were both mentally and physically gone, hence why we struggled last season? I think, and again, you've got to say, you can't. I know we blame Brendan. But you then got to blame the fact that you got to blame Top because he was there so long, and then you've got to blame the players because whoever's in charge and whether they should still be performing better than they were. But
you can't win that, can you? You can't win. You sack Ranieri half a season after he won the league, and you get criticised for that.
Well, you see,
And
that's
we
the
were
funny thing
awful.
because I
We
got
were awful.
criticised by who's the guy that used to? I know he still does Talk Sports late show at night, 10 to 1. He's a ex-Chelsea player,
Yeah.
I know
and
you-
you know what I mean, yeah. And he had to go at me because we'd sacked Ranieri. I said, well, it's not like Chelsea don't sack the managers when they've just won like the Champions League or something. I said, they're only doing what you guys do. But that's what always confused me because, again, you've got a decision there which was, well, God, we could go down here. And that was why they got rid of Ranieri. But he didn't do it this time.
I think he was criticised so badly that maybe he hesitated. Instead of trusting his own, well, that wasn't him, was it? That was his dad.
That was his dad, indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Top didn't want to perhaps make the same publicity mistake. I don't know, but I think that stopped him from doing it, which was a shame.
The Leicester City injuries last season.
Yeah.
We missed because of injured players. 901 days, 110 games was missed through injury. But you can't blame injury when you look at that, can you, Craig? Because there's a fair few teams that were as bad as or worse off than us when it comes to injuries.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those apart from Bournemouth, Forest, I guess. I mean, Forest had about 50 players, didn't they?
Yeah.
So they probably coped a little bit better. Liverpool and Chelsea had big squads. I think, we could look at any number of reasons.
So just to come back to you on that one, though, Craig, you say, yes, they've got bigger squads, but we've all got the same size squad. We've all got 25.
All right. Better depth in that 25 of quality in that squad. Yeah. But again, I was going to go on to say that it's not an excuse. We were good enough to be at least mid-table in that division.
Well, Craig, the year before, 21-22, we would probably be top of that chart.
Yeah,
do you remember
exactly.
we had five of our back four out for months on end, and we did okay. We did okay.
Managers and players have life cycles at clubs, and when you listen to the same voice over and over, it's only natural that you're going to stop. There's not anything new, and I think that's why Leicester fans should be prepared that we'll have Maresca for probably 3 seasons and then he'll be gone. Because that's what happens, and not just the fact that you need to recycle, but the fact that other clubs will come for him. But I think at that point that when your manager Brendan Rodgers keeps coming out with excuses and starts taking the fans for idiots, the board should be able to read those clues and realise that they need to act. And I think you're right; it was difficult because I don't think Top had sacked anyone before. So.
But wasn't it Top that convinced his father to keep Nigel Pearson?
By all accounts, but again, it's second hand. I can't imagine, that he would have had that much sway. He might have added to it, and if he was on the fence and Top just said, "Well, give him another chance," then maybe that swung it a little bit. But he didn't strike me as a man who would be easily swayed.
No. I just want to read this next bit here because this is from a gentleman called Daniel Mann from TotalFootballAnalysis.com. And this was his summary of our season. It wasn't long ago that Leicester went from winning the EPL to consistently challenging for top 6 finishes. From 8th to 18th last season has seen Leicester slide from Europe to relegation. The problem was, says Daniel, the club had a bloated squad and large wage bill, along with spending big in the summer before last and the inability to offload key players for large sums. The unfortunate injuries to key defensive players and the World Cup break have also impacted their season, causing them to ship far more goals than in previous seasons. With Everton surviving and only 2 points above Leicester on the final day, it may have been that a win in the 2-2 draw at the King Power against the Toffees may have been enough to keep the Foxes up. Craig, your thoughts on what he says first?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's a little bit disappointing because we've said the same thing and he's being paid for it.
New business.
Yeah. But yeah,
Has that paycheck not come through again from me?
not
Craig?
yet. No. But you're right. I mean, and we all pointed towards that Everton game that was sort of pivotal. You know, you get a bit of momentum, and it drains their momentum a little bit. They would have been on a high coming away and taking a point, I would have thought. But yeah, I mean, you know, you can look at excuses, but I think it's right. There was mismanagement all the way through in terms of the length of contracts that people were getting, and then allowing other players' contracts to run down. Yeah. It was just ridiculous. At some point, you've got to say, right, this is what we believe you're worth. This is what we're going to give you. You either sign the contract or you don't. And we're a big enough club to let good players go, because we will replace you as we have done. And we weren't. For some reason, I think the whole thing with, you know, losing the chairman over that sort of couple of years, you know, showed the inability and the sort of weakness behind it. You know, that all of a sudden these were people who didn't have to make decisions, and now they were having to make decisions, and they probably weren't experienced enough to do it. And I would hope that they've all learnt, as we all have learnt lessons the hard way, and we won't make those mistakes again.
Dave, we touched on this before before the show started. Brendan Rodgers, just looking at his time at Leicester, 45.1% win percentage. That was better than Ranieri overall, and better than Shaky in his time as a manager. FA Cup winners for the first time in history. Community Shield winners for the second time in our history. 2 top 5 finishes. Consecutive, I can't talk today, consecutive European seasons, and if you look at that, I can't spell either. Semi-final of the European club competition. They're the positives. On the downside, he came back to Leicester City to rebuild his Premier League career. Back off to Scotland when this failed. Had favourites, no plan B. This is just what people have said over his time here. Consistently threw players under the bus. Would not take any responsibility for failures. And I put at the end, because I believe he was hung out to dry by top on the board, misled and not informed, FFP and transferred, and should have been released earlier by top. But Dave, looking at the green part of that, we've got to remember he did do well for the club at the start.
He did, but those top 5 finishes should have been 2 top 4 finishes. We bottled it twice. We should have finished in Europe twice. You know, we were in one season, we were second for a long time, weren't we? If I remember rightly. And we blew it. And that was the problem. When the going got tough, Brendan fucked off. You know, it's what he does. He did it at Celtic. His challenge was there, but the challenge was the money. Because he knew that, he'd taken Celtic to their glory days again, and he was offered a decent wage to come to Leicester. You're right about getting back in the Premier League. He thought he could make a point there, and he did. I'm forever grateful for the FA Cup. Just he got it in the wrong season. That was all.
Well, here's a question: Would we have all, as Leicester City fans, taken that 45% win percentage spread over the 3 seasons and finished mid-table every season?
Yeah.
Rather than winning the FA Cup, having European football, and then getting relegated.
Well, I'd have taken the FA Cup above everything else.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
20 years, 30 years.
And that's it. When you look at a tenure, we're looking at the tail end of it. And you're right, we should have been in the Champions League, and we did bottle it.
Yeah. The trouble is, Craig, as well, that Leicester have never been able to sustain that position ever. Even under Martin O'Neill, it was getting wonky at the end.
It's cyclical, isn't it? For clubs like ours, it's cyclical.
But we should be able to, because we're a big club now. I question everybody saying we're not. We've got one of the best training facilities in the world. Let them finish all the development in 5 years or more. We're going to have one of the best grounds in the country. We've got a great youth setup. Goodness sake, if we can't sustain a top 5 or 6 finish in Premier League every year, something's wrong.
There's a pattern here, though, and I think the same happened under O'Neill and probably under Pearson. You get teams like Everton, like the Coventrys when they were there before, who have poor season after poor season after poor season, and they get away with it. We have one bad season and we go, and that's been a pattern, and that's happened 3 or 4 times for us. We've been okay.
Yeah.
We have a bad season, and that bad season is always bad enough to get us relegated. We don't get away with it.
Well, you boys will be too young to remember probably, but we lost to Coventry on goal difference the year we got relegated when we got to the FA Cup final in '69. That was because we were playing 3 or 4 games a week towards the end.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's always seems to be. Every team will say they don't get the rub of the green, but we really haven't done.
No.
I mean, I'm going to say that 45, but I don't know whether you again is, but that 45.1% was over his entire 204 games.
Yeah, but what I mean was that would have been swayed by the good seasons. It would have been up where near 60, and the bad season is near 25.
I'm going to take or disagree with you very, very strongly here. As Ronald says here, Rodgers bottled it against Liverpool as well. I'm sorry. Bottle it is what a lot of opposition fans say. How can you bottle something when you've done better than you would have expected to at the start of the season?
Well, because when it gets to a certain level...
Hang on, Dave. Sorry. There are 6 what we would call big teams, yeah? Nobody is expected to get into those top 6 positions. The fact that we finished 5th was amazing. Yes, 4th would have been better. Of course it would. But over 38 games... we did bloody well to get to 5th. And I'm sorry, I can't agree that we bottled 4th. I think we did bloody well to get 5th.
Well, we did bottle it because we were well in to the top 4. The first season we bottled it. We were second for a long time to Liverpool, was it? I can't remember. And then we just fell apart because we couldn't deal with it. And players suddenly realised, hang on, we're up here. What can we do? We didn't do it when we won the league. What was the difference?
Okay, when we won the league, you had Manchester City, who sacked their manager with about 3 or 4 months to go, and as Craig said earlier, you've then got players that aren't, he's going at the end of the season, so what? That's always kicks you down. You got Liverpool, who just got a new manager in Klopp, who was still sort of, trying to sort things out and get his way. So new manager coming in, you're never necessarily going to sort of win the league. Arsenal were struggling as they were every single season and looked like they were on for the 4th. Tottenham, let's be honest with you, they got the nosebleed as much as we did when they were up to 2nd. We know that in a normal season, we would not have won that. But as much as we were good enough, you've got to say other teams had their own problems, which allowed us to come through on the outside, like the 100 to 1 outside or 5,000 to 1 outsider, and take it. I just don't think you can accuse us of bottling it.
Well, we only had 15 first team players in that day. This time we got 20 odd, and they didn't step up, and the manager didn't do anything about it.
So getting 5th wasn't stepping up?
No, not from the position we were in. That was like being first in the league when we did win it and finishing about 6th. That's my point. I mean, it was great being there, but
I think you can exceed expectations and bottle it because the very nature of bottling it is at the culmination of something, not at the start of a season. So I think if we'd have, at the start, we'd have all taken 5th, all of us. But the fact that you get there and then you can't see it through, that is the very nature. That's what that phrase means. Bottling it is failing to see it through right at the end. And it is a harsh word. I get you, Chris. I do agree. But we bottled it, but we did exceed expectations at the start. That you can have the two.
Well, we'll agree to disagree on this one, gentlemen. And all I would say is that the team that, the teams that sort of got into the top 4, as you said again earlier, Craig, the depth of squad was a hell of a lot better that they could call on than we had over the 38 games. So, yes, disappointed For me, bottling it, no. But look,
Yeah,
I'm outvoted 2-3, so 2-1.
Well, no, because I agree that bottling it is a harsh phrase, but I don't think there's another phrase, sadly. So, it does sound harsher than it actually is.
I might be wrong, but I thought the last 4 or 5 games, all right, let's say we blew it, the last 4 or 5 games, because we didn't take many points out of those, if I remember, either season.
Probably a kind of way of putting it.
Yeah,
I'll take blew it. Take blew it. But
you prefer to be blown than bottled.
Preferably, yes.
Moving on to the next season.
So yes, certainly if you're not using Vaseline. Look, let me. Dave always manages to bring it down. I'll tell you. Right. So next season, let's quickly move on. Enzo, we got Enzo in, and a bit of a surprise. His managerial experience, he spent a very short time at Scotland, assistant manager. He was at Seville from 17 to 18 as assistant. West Ham United assistant manager from 18 to 19. When obviously he was at the match when our chairman sadly passed away in the helicopter crash. 2021, he was the Manchester City development squad manager. Went to Parma for those 12 games. They're kicking themselves now, aren't they? Then became Manchester City assistant on the 2022 to 23. As you can see there, kissing the Champions League trophy, which he lifted 6 days before signing for Leicester City. Managerial honours, well, in fairness, not done an awful lot, but he has won the Premier League 2 with Manchester City's under-23s in 2021, and as you can see there, with the old Champions League trophy. Left field, Craig.
Yeah, but, I was pleased, I must admit, because, the usual names were being bandied around. We need a manager who's got experience of getting teams out of this division, which is great, but you look at those managers who get teams out of this division and they very rarely keep those teams up in the next division. So you're basically just putting off the fact that you're going to have to find a new manager probably in the middle of the next season. So I was really pleased that they almost went back and took a step back and took the time, because they must have been talking to him for a while. I'm sure that they would have probably wanted him when they appointed Dean Smith, but there's no way that he was going to leave, at the point of the season that they were at, to be honest. He'd have never had that photograph taken. So I'm pleased it was a left field decision. And again, it's hindsight, isn't it? And that's 2020 vision hindsight. Oh, but I think it was brave. And I think as much stick as we gave all the board, I think they have to be given given plaudits for taking a brave decision on an untried manager, but to try and do something different. And not only from a first team perspective, but understanding that when you've got those facilities, you need a manager who's going to come in and change the way and the structure of the whole football club and get the teams all the way through the age divisions playing the same way. I've mentioned this before, Chris, that if you look at the foreign models, pretty much, particularly the Germans, I guess, and the Spanish, the club has a way of playing, not the manager. And the manager that comes in every time you change has to fit into the way that the club wants to play football. And in this country, it seems to be that we go with the way that the particular manager wants to play football. And that's why you get these changes, whereas, managers come in and they can't do what they want to do because they haven't got the players to do it. So I think this was not only a brave appointment, but an appointment with foresight. And hopefully, they now look at the same thing. And when Maresca moves on, we look at somebody in his ilk who will carry on the style that Leicester will be known for, not just bring in a manager who will then want to change everything.
Ronald says there, thank goodness we finished reviewing last season. I think we all feel a little bit like that. Dave, the word that Craig used there was brave. I did another show, as much as I did a show criticising Top. And then I had to do a show and turn around and in fairness to the guy, say, well, he's learned from his mistakes. He's come back. And like I say, it wasn't in my choice to come. I completely hadn't even considered him. I'd said who I wanted, McKenna or Thomason. But a good point made by Craig, there's no guarantee of what they would do in the Premier League. As much as I thought, well, this guy has no idea what he's doing in this division. If he gets us up, he'll know what he does. He'll know what's going on in the Premier League. Do you think? I mean, to me, it was an appointment, astute, as Craig said, a risk and brave, as Craig said, but one that the fans could actually grab hold of. Bloody hell, this guy's just won the Champions League, and we've got him as our new manager. It gave us suddenly something to sort of cheer about, almost, didn't it?
Well, I was gutted that Scott Parker didn't get the job, as you know.
I know you wanted him, didn't you?
Nah, the old bollocks.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. The Littlewoods cardigan. That's who you wanted him.
I think the fact that he's worked under Pep just for a season said it all. He brought all those good points across. You're right. He knows what he's doing. He has the contacts with Man City, which may give us a player or so in the transfer window. Who knows? But it certainly got us one. So yeah, it's all there. The basis is there. We know where we're going. We don't like what we're doing, or we didn't initially. But when we're sitting that far ahead at the top of the league, nobody can argue. We've scored more goals than anybody else. We've got a better goal. No, we haven't. Sorry, we've got a better goal difference than anybody else, haven't we?
We've scored more goals than everybody else as well.
We have as well, have we?
Yes.
I thought Southampton might have sneaked on that, but no. Okay, so, even better. And how can you argue with that? Yeah, it's not been pretty at times, but it's effective, and that's all you need to do in this league.
We had somebody in here. It was Vardy's, Jamie Vardy's bum buddy, Boris, and he used to come in every week, and his attitude was, "This is boring. Yes, we're winning, but isn't it boring?" Craig, winning can't be boring at any level, can it be?
Well, no, but I
Unless
can
you're
see.
Arsenal.
Yeah, I can see. I can understand people, particularly early on, because and there were rumblings. I'm down there every game. There were rumblings early on, even though we were winning. There was discontent, shall we say? And again, I think I've said it on here before. I think the crowd needed to be educated as much as the players. I think we all had to go on the same journey. And you see it now, that we can have a game against Huddersfield where we didn't really do much for the first 45 minutes. Yet the crowd stuck with it. There weren't those rumblings. You still get the odd one or two. But the crowd understand the process and understand that, we will wear teams down and we know what we're trying to do. It won't always come off, particularly when teams want to put that many men behind the ball. But I think we've all come on a journey. And when you think that this is, 4 months, 5 months in, of a new manager, setting up a team to play in not a totally different way, but a more controlled way. It's phenomenal that we've got that many wins and that the players have bought into it so well. All credit to them.
The problem as well is certainly for me, and if anybody, and this is why I've come off, the Facebook group is shut down, the Twitter and the Instagram isn't being used, is because you're not allowed to have an opinion and moan without somebody, just say, not adding to the conversation, but just, having a go at you. And, if you look at our watch-along shows, the way that we react to when we've lost is completely different to how we react when we do the review show, which is the day after. It's an instant reaction. We've lost. And I know Brad's had a bit of a dig at Maresca, no plan B. I've had a bit of a dig at Maresca because we lost the game. But look, what do we know about football? It's very, very, very little if you've ever watched this show. Dave, look, I know you're going to be really disappointed that Amarty's on this list, but my God, after having nothing to do in the previous window, We sold Tottenham. We sold Maddison to Tottenham, Barnes to Newcastle, just short of 80 million. Not bad, I don't think, for a relegated team. I forgot that we sold Castagna to Fulham for 11 million, Hurst to Ipswich for 1.5. Yeah, okay, we lost Tielemans, we lost Soyuncu, and that's a shame, but I think after the way he was treated, I can't blame him at all. But almost as importantly as making those sales, we released Amati, Perez, Evans, Mendy, Bertrand, and of course Tete's loan ended. We'll look at the other loan deals let's just bring it up now. Sent out on loan, although he may be coming back. Thomas to Sheffield United, Samari to Sevilla, and Christensen to Bologna. But wasn't it important, I think, the way that we did the transfer dealings so early? Yes, we could have probably held out for more for Barnes and Maddison, but we got them out, got the money in, and that meant we could go out and do our business early as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think, just to expand on Dave's...
please help me out here, Craig.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing is the reason that we are 10, 12 points ahead of Southampton and Leeds. We did all our business early on. We not only got the manager in early,
yes,
we got the players out early, and we got his new players in early, and we're like a month ahead. And in the number of games, that equates to those points. I think, Southampton got their manager in fairly early, but their players were restless, shall we say. They didn't know who they had. They didn't really bring many in. Leeds again had players going out on strike, who wanted to try and force moves away. Their manager search seemed to drag on forever. They started looking at Daniel Farker, and then he seemed to be the last man standing in the end. Yeah. Whereas we'd had a month of working with these players on the training ground. We'd got our players in. We'd got Winks in early. We got Cody in early. We'd got the loan signings. Mavididi came in fairly early, and we stole a Jesse March on everyone. And and that is showing where we are now. And I think that's the biggest reason that we did our business early. So again, well played to the board.
Exactly. It's almost like you say, they've looked at last season, ripped that up, and said, no, we're not. That was everything that went wrong. We're going to do everything right. We did get the business in early. I can remember being at a summer barbecue with my brother-in-law, who's a Man United fan, and I've said this many a time. My phone buzzing, and me turning around to him and saying, "We've just signed Winks and Cody." And his actual reply to me was, "Fuck off, no, you haven't." And I was like, "Yes, we have." Look, and I left the barbecue early to come home and do a show. And that, Dave, hopefully get a longer answer out of you this time. I thought I'd never say that to Dave. But, when you look at that incoming, I mean, Winks, Cody, Mavididi, Hermansen, Cannon, on the loans, Atgun, Cashaday, Doyle, Fatawu. I mean, wow, what? I mean, it's just like my words fail me. It's got to. Is it the best transfer window we've ever had
in modern day? Yeah, I mean, it's that's less than 40 million, isn't it? Something like that, which we've doubled with the two sales. So yeah, perfect. And I'm with Craig. It's the first time I can remember for a long time we've done it early. We've always waited late on. I don't know why we always waited late on. But we always did. Whereas
it happened a lot under O'Neill, didn't it? We never did business until right towards the end.
Yeah, and this one I wasn't even watching the last day because I knew. Well, apart from Cannon, who we didn't know whether he was coming or not, or what was going on, you kind of didn't expect anything else. In fact, I was surprised next day when I saw we'd signed Tom Cannon. And that was incredible.
I'm like, and we signed him. Andy was injured. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? And then he hasn't, obviously, he's been on the bench for a couple of nights. Games. I'm thinking, what the hell? Again, what do we know about football?
Well, nothing.
He took it, like Daka. He took his chance, and and Vestergaard. They get the chance, they take it.
Now we've got 4 strikers, all capable of scoring goals. I mean,
we haven't
had that for a long time.
No. Just to sidetrack briefly, because of course in January we've got we're going to lose a couple of those strikers. Definitely going to lose Daka. Inacho, we're not sure about because of injuries. That said, Ndidi is not going to AFCON due to injuries. So if we can get him fitter, he could be back quicker than if he'd gone to AFCON. And Fatawu isn't going either.
No, that was just impressive, wasn't it?
Doesn't want to go and sit on the bench and do nothing when he can be playing for us. So he's making all the right noises, and I've got to say I am extremely, extremely happy about that. But Craig, like you say, and I said a few times that we would not have won the Premier League had we not got relegated to League One that season. Because what happened was we literally had a clear out, didn't we? And Pearson came in and changed a load of things around, and that was the start of the journey. And I think how much of this would have happened had we not got relegated? Is it a case of, a couple of steps back to take some steps forward?
I think what happens is relegation forces your hand.
Yeah.
And you have to make drastic steps. We may have got here, but it may have been over 2 or 3 seasons, and you just, you're making little deals here and there. You're getting 2 players out, you're bringing 2 in. You're not having an overhaul, which we needed to have. One, to bring in cash to be able to strengthen the squad, but also to get the wage bill down. So I think it forces your hand to do it. It's difficult to say whether it would have happened or not, but it certainly gives you that option to reset. And they can go one of 2 ways. We've seen enough clubs go through. We were one of them. We've done it. Southampton have done it. Leeds have done it. Big clubs have gone all the way through, so it doesn't always mean that you're going to come straight back up. But I think because the manager was in early, he can bring in his players rather than you struggling around and bringing in players that the backroom staff want or the board want and think that you should buy because they've been offered by an agent, and then the manager's stuck with them, And I think it was integral, and you kind of think that there must have been a plan. Let's get the manager in early, so then we're not wasting our money. We're buying players that he actually wants. So, it's given us the opportunity to reset. And,
I just don't think we would have had that reset, Dave, had we stayed up.
No, we wouldn't. No, because we'd have still had Rodgers.
Well, indeed. And how many of the players, that were on that list there, would we still have had? Perez, Evans, there was talk about offering him a new contract. He might have stayed if he'd stayed up. Mendy, who apparently hasn't got a club at the moment, which is
that's weird, isn't it?
Real.
The Barnes wouldn't have gone, I don't think.
Tete, I think, has gone to Galatasaray. Apparently, he went to Galatasaray, and we got Yunus. And apparently, when I had somebody come in, I think he was in earlier. I'm not sure if he's still in. If it was the same gentleman. Gentleman here, obviously a big Yunus fan. But we had a gentleman who was a Galatasaray fan, and he went, "Oh, how's Yunus doing?" Bo? I went, "Oh, he's brilliant, and he was playing well." I said, "How's Tete?" He went, "He's shit." So we got the better end of the deal then. But look, going into the new season, Dave, let's start with you. I mean, there was a lot of red last season. I've got to say, we've got a lot of green for this season. What a start! I mean, we started off with coming back from 2-1.
What is she doing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
As long as you doesn't put those flashing lights on, because I know you like a lot of different colours. But
indeed.
We came back from being behind at Coventry to win 2-1. I got the job done game at Burton. Huddersfield 1-0. Cardiff 2-1. Rotherham 2-1. Not anything that's setting the world alight, but again, Coca-Cola Cup, Tranmere, got the job done game. Ended the month of August in first. Manager of the month for Enzo. Always looking good, wasn't it?
Well, there's some late goals in there as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Remembering rightly.
I don't know if we still are, but I know we've conceded a few late goals recently, which I was one of the things I wasn't happy about. But we had scored more goals in the last 15 minutes than anybody else in the division.
Which actually bears out his plan and his tactic. I mean,
it does.
that's the thing I think that have brought the crowd round because they've seen it work. It is a bit worrying. I'm sure you'll go into it later, but not too later. I hope Craig only giving us 5 minutes, but it's good that we go to the end. That is vital. I think O'Neill days we used to score a few late ones, didn't we? If I remember rightly, we never gave up.
Foxes never quit. That's where it came from.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so no, that's brilliant. A start.
You must be pleased with the start as well, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the Huddersfield game. That wasn't pretty, to be honest. I don't think we played particularly well. We had a great chance. Probably the best bit of football we played in those early games was when Dennis Pratt got released by some lovely interplay, and he got released from the halfway line and didn't take his chance. But then we got the goal with Mavididi, and and everybody goes home happy. So I don't think any of those were particularly convincing victories.
No.
But as Dave said, we ground them out by just tiring teams out by our possession, meaning that we come strong towards the end of games. But what a great start for the month.
And then going into September, I'll stick with you, Craig. We lost, and to be honest with you, although obviously I'm not happy at Leicester losing. In a way, I kind of was, because we were like win. I think the longer it had gone on without us losing, it would have been like the lemming over the cliff, if you like, when it finally happened. So we did it. We got it out the way. Hull City fans were, you think they'd won the league, they were celebrating. We then went to Southampton. I actually went to that game and we demolished Southampton. Yeah. And it's the only time that I've actually overruled Alan, who does my man of the match, because he wouldn't get. I can't remember who he gave. I think he gave it to Winks, which he does most weeks, bless him. But I overruled him and said it had to go to Vestergaard because he was taking some abuse from the Southampton fans and had a brilliant game. Huddersfield in the and again I think I've got that wrong. Beat Norwich, beat Bristol City, and then lost to Liverpool in the cup, which. Again, when you look, it was 1-1. They then had a superb goal. Goal at could have been a goal of the season, and then a third went in off the post. So we weren't embarrassed in that game at all. But again, not disappointed we're out of it.
No, I think the Hull game was probably our most consistent performance across 90 minutes, and we ended up losing. It's just one of those games that you do get. As you said, Southampton, we ripped them to pieces. And I think that result caused them to have a bit of a reset. And he realised that he couldn't play the way he was playing, taking all those chances across the back. I know they still do keep possession, but I think they've tightened up a hell of a lot since taking that beating. The fact that we even decided to go back to Huddersfield and beat them again, that was nice. After we beat them. But then I think Liverpool was
we did. I don't think we did a double last. Oh no, we did one double last season over West Ham.
I think the Liverpool one was a sort of okay, let's not get carried away with ourselves, and when you come up against a good team, there's still a long way to go for this Leicester City team, and there still is. If we went up now, I think we would still struggle.
Yes,
but again, the bread and butter is the league, and we end the month first. And there was enough there to give you the encouragement that this wasn't a flash in the pan kind of Preston start to the season.
Yeah, Dave, again, don't want to lose games, but I wasn't overly disappointed that Liverpool knocked us out the Caribou.
No, maybe not. With hindsight, I was a bit disappointed at the time because we seemed to be doing all right. But
you want to win every game, don't you? Yeah. But when you look, we didn't have that. We can, we kind of collapsed for 20 odd minutes in the pre-season friendly.
Yeah.
But there, like I say, a wonder goal and the in off the post was probably the only difference. But
and I think throughout the start of the August, September, October, all the way through, Enzo's always said we will lose more games. We cannot possibly continue like this. He's gearing people up to disappointment, which, it keeps the players on their toes, which is important. and that's where his man management comes in, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Hello,
someone is in the background taking a book.
The
There's a library open.
Yeah. we shut at 8.
You wish.
Yeah. So
moving on then to October.
Yeah.
Dave, we'll stick with you on this one then. I mean, look at all that green again. I mean, Blackburn Rovers 4-1, another positive performance.
Looking at those games.
Preston 3-0, who were top of the league at the time.
Well, this is what I was just going to say. We then burst a few bubbles there. Blackburn, I thought, were excellent against us. Preston were top and we murdered them. Stoke, well, that was always going to happen. Swansea, I remember you saying, Chris, that you thought that'd be a really tricky game at Swansea because they were on a run. We dealt with them. Sunderland, whatever. And QPR, another last minute, wouldn't it? Goal of the season.
Harry Winks, yeah.
Yeah, and QPR, I thought would have been more comfortable. But they're fighting for their lives, and maybe even fighting for the manager. Who knows? But
I think Swansea was the start of a run of Chris saying the next game is the toughest one.
Swansea were on a run, to be fair.
I can't remember. I mean, I'm not arguing. I probably did say that. Sunderland, I thought, was going to be a difficult game.
It was. That was the toughest game.
Yeah.
They were very good, Sunderland.
Again, they were on a good run.
Have you noticed, though, all these other clubs, they're very hot and cold.
Yeah.
They lose some really what should be easy games.
It's that consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the most impressive thing. If you just started it at the start of the season, sorry, Dave, at the start of the season, you just said minimum we want to be in the playoffs. And I think we're 25 points clear of 7th.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, it just doesn't compute, does it?
But every time we've been asked the questions, we've answered them. Whether it's against the top sides. I mean, Ipswich away was disappointing, but we got a point, which is what I was saying. Why was everybody moaning? We got a point at Ipswich. Boxing Day, I can't remember us being any good any time. Not much anyway. I mean, all the games I remember going, we were crap.
We'll come on to Ipswich in a minute because that's December.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You'll
learn one day. You're like a little Duracell rabbit, aren't you? You're just so far ahead of yourself.
Past my bedtime.
Well, you have been doing your best with the short answers. But no, here we go. November, Dave, let's stick with you and then we'll go over. Started off awful. Michael was just asking then about the Leeds game. It was coming up in November. Middlesbrough, we lost 2 on the trot. And I suddenly thought, is this the start of our blip, if you like? Because, every team seems to have a blip. Southampton, who started well, had a blip. Leeds started with the blip. Norwich were up there. Preston were up there. They were having blips. And then Watford came in. It cost Elton John a tenner, which I believe is now finally paid. Gary Lineker. And then Sheffield Wednesday, who we should have beaten. Now, that game, I know I did say it was going to be a tough game because Leicester City, typical of Leicester, we can go and beat Preston, who are top, and then we can go and struggle against Sheffield Wednesday, who are bottom.
That was a bad month, November. Just bad month. But the good news was it was only 3 games. But we won 1. Ipswich have had bad 3 games in their views. They scored 1-1, 0-0, something like that. Or they haven't scored for 2 games, which Ipswich score for fun. So you're right. They're all going through it. I think Ipswich might have blown it now. I don't know whether they'll find a way back from that. We did, which is brilliant.
Now, they haven't announced, Craig, they haven't announced the December manager of the month yet. Foregone conclusion, isn't it? I mean, just look at that. I mean, green. Hang on. I've flipped too far, which is my story of my life. Green. I mean, all right. I'm not going to go through them all. We had Ipswich in there, and I was absolutely pissed off after the Ipswich game.
You were, weren't you, Chris?
I was.
I did see that post.
You did. It was after the Ipswich game that I decided to shut down the Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram because I just think, look, disagree with me, and I don't always post what I think, Sometimes I post to create a discussion. But if you're going to come back to me, don't just come back to me with that's bollocks. Come back to me with why it's bollocks, if you like, And so, I'm not saying that, everything I say is correct, whatever. But I think it was, had the roles been reversed, Craig, and had we been 1-0 down and we'd come back at the end, it would have been a completely different reaction, because we'd have saved a point. And yes, again, it's one of those where a point at the start of the game would have been, would have taken that. But Ipswich were not all that, and we should have killed that game off.
Yeah, and we've been there a few times. You've only got to look at that. We let Millwall get a late goal.
Yeah.
We let Birmingham get a late goal.
Mm.
We let Ipswich get a late goal, and there was a kind of pattern emerging of us not seeing games out and finishing teams off. And I think when you come into the new year, I would imagine that is one area that Enzo will be looking to put right, that the management of games and not making it nervous, because even the game against Huddersfield, balls in the box are going to drop, and sometimes they'll drop to the opposition and they stab it in from a couple of yards. So we've got to make sure that our game management is better, and that the players don't start losing focus and overplaying in wrong areas of the pitch when there's still the game's going on. Football is the game we all love because it can swing so quickly.
Yes.
And you don't need to give teams any encouragement. So going into the next year and this year, I would hope that that's something that he looks to improve on. But December was fantastic.
I want to ask you, Craig, because I know you will have been there. Leicester 3, Rotherham United 0. Are they the worst team we've played all season?
Probably. I went to the Cardiff game on the 29th. That was a lovely trip.
Yeah,
I was quite pleased that I got back before 1 o'clock in the morning, to be honest. But Cardiff weren't great, to be honest. And for them being the home team, I think that's probably the most complete performance we've had. They did have a couple of little skirmishes around, but that was a game. I don't know if you managed to see it on a stream or anything, but that was a game where we looked to be completely in control of that game. And the opposition were in awe of us. And I think we're probably going to see that a little bit more, that the opposition don't know what to do.
I think we were dazzled by their kit, weren't we?
Yeah, the kits were a little bit too close for my liking. But yeah, Rotherham weren't great at all, to be honest. Although I did think they had two very good fullbacks who kept our wingers pretty quiet during that game, and they were rapid, particularly the left back. So I think one of them, the right back, is on loan from Arsenal to Rotherham. But
I'm not going to say that Cardiff parked the bus. I think they'd bought out National Express, and
I don't think we allowed them to do much else, to be honest, because we controlled
nine defenders I counted on several occasions when we were going forward.
But I think it's natural when you haven't got the ball. You can either stay up the pitch and sort of goal hang, but they're players. And one thing I notice, I'm starting to feel sorry for the opposition number 9s, because they just run from player to player and watch the ball being passed around them and turn around, and there's nobody else doing the pressing. And I think it's a pattern that we're just going to see for the rest of the season, to be honest.
Shall we put a smile on Dave's face? Because he's looking at us. Let's try. Let's review the season so far. Dave, Christmas and New Year.
Start the show again?
Sorry?
The retake.
Start the show again.
No. Christmas and New Year number 1 this season. 19 of 25 weeks we've been first in the division. 18 consecutive weeks we've been number 1. Most wins. Joint least losses with 3. Most goals scored with 50. Biggest goal difference of plus 33. It's an easy this division, isn't it?
I'll tell you what we haven't done, though. I think we haven't kept the most clean sheets.
Oh, just piss on our party, Dave. I mean, for God's sake, how can you look at that and go, yeah, but the one thing we haven't done, Jesus Christ, Dave.
Don't bring him into it, all right?
I tell you what, no wonder they sacked you at the Samaritans.
I tell you what, summing up so far, and it's sad. In some ways, it's sad that we're going to get promoted because there's a hell of a lot to like about football in the Championship.
Yes, there is. Yes.
I think the lack of VAR is a return to proper football. You glance at the linesman, the flag's down, it's a goal, crack on with it.
Yes.
I love that. I love the fact that the refereeing, I think, is much better because they let things go. There were decisions in the game against Huddersfield that damn well that Premier League referees would have blown for. There was one near the goal line, I think, where we got a corner and Mavididi had sort of nudged their player over the line, so we got a corner. It's going to get blown up for every day in the Premier League. And the fact that the players crack on with it, they're not rolling around and putting their hand in the air calling for an ambulance when they get knocked down. And I'm going to miss it all.
Notice, and I'm not sure, I think might have been Ipswich, I'm not sure which game it was, where one of the players went down holding the face so that the referee had to stop the game. Yeah. And as soon as the whistle went, he started holding his knee.
Yeah, I mean, that happens quite a bit, and it happens even more in the Premier League, but they're looking for everything. And it's just, if we could take all of those elements of the Championship and move them into the Premier League, I think we'd all be a lot happier.
Well, that's going to be my question. Why don't we? Because we know it's great. We know the fans love it. The players, the managers are all calling for VAR to be scrapped. I've not read anything positive about it.
It's not what we know, unfortunately. It's not going to happen. But Dan, the Burnley fan, he said to me when we got relegated, he said, "You know what? You're going to love next season."
Yeah.
He said it's proper football, no VAR. All right, 3:00 kickoffs. We tend to sort of lose out on that somewhat, but that's the joy of being top of the league, like we are. But yes, and I've got to say, I thought the referee against Cardiff was the best referee that we've had all season, and it's strange that he's an ex lower league footballer.
I think it's the one we had against Huddersfield. I think we've had him twice. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and he had his first game, didn't he? There was a lot because I think it's the first black referee for like 13, 15 years or something in the Premier League.
I'm quite happy to have referees that will get things wrong occasionally rather than referees plus VAR that seem to get things wrong constantly.
I don't agree with you, Chris, on the fact it would never change. I think if managers keep going on, if the FA goes on, if people make enough noise, it will change. And it's our game. It's not FIFA's game.
I mean,
like that.
I mean, there's a common ground to be found in if you don't want to throw it out, keep it for matters of fact. Did the ball cross the line?
Yeah.
Was the foul in the area or not? But let referees who have trained for years and years and years, and linesmen who have trained for years and years and worked their way up, do the job that they've been trained to do.
Yeah. I mean,
I was trying. You do not go mad at me if this show has been going on for a while. You guys brought VAR up, not me.
Okay.
Say that.
Finish
Dave,
that.
can we try and put another smile on Dave's face? I'm sure he'll find something to piss on that party over this one.
I'll do my best.
But, where are we? Here we go. Longest winning streak, 9 games. Least goals conceded, 17. Best start to Championship ever. I mean, just look at that. How many points are we ahead of Southampton? Now, don't forget, this doesn't include the New Year's Day games because that's this year, not last year. I mean, Hull, I think, are closer to relegation zone than they are to us. I mean, I could say, does it get any better, Dave?
Is that ever since the First Division was going as well?
I think it's definitely, bless you. It definitely was since the Championship.
Yeah, I know. There's football before the Championship.
Yeah, there's plenty, but some of us aren't old enough to remember it like you are, Dave. Craig,
absolutely brilliant.
Let's move it on for you. Again, some of the highlights. Maresca, Manager of the Month for August, Manager of the Month for November. He's got to be Manager of the Month for December as well, hasn't he? KDH and Fatawu, top assists in the division with 6. Vestergaard, Ndidi, Daka, all of them reborn. Chowdhury, on his way out under the bell end. Suddenly he's recalled, given a new contract, and he's captain as well. Wonder wingers. But this one, Winks, signing of the Championship, surely he's got to be.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so, because everything does sort of revolve around him. I think the guy who doesn't get credit as much is Hermansen. You know, I think that keeper has been fantastic. Yeah, he does make some ricks. He's going to, the amount of times he passes the ball out.
You've seen that show as well, have you?
Yeah.
Play like that, he will do, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, he allows us to play that way, you know, and he's a great shot stopper as well.
The great thing
he's made
is
some great saves.
But
the wingers are the thing, aren't they? I think, you know, and Fatawu was going to be a big miss, because although we've got McAteer, we've got Marcel, you know, they're not in his league. So the fact that we've got those two, and you can see, I know he hasn't had really an opportunity to rest them because we've had injuries, but I don't think he will. I think they are such an integral part of the way that we play that, and the fact that we've got one signed up already and we've got an agreement in place if we get promoted with the other is fantastic.
Do we? I mean, this was something, Dave, that Scott said earlier. We're only allowed to have 5 loan players in the match day squad, and I think we've already got 4. Is there an argument for buying Fatawu now? So because you know, is it better not to loan players in January than buy players? So if we buy Fatawu, who we've had for half a season, we know how bloody good he is. We've got an agreement in place there. Just go and give him a check and go, here you are, we'll buy him now. And then we can probably loan somebody rather than having to spend money and in January.
I think we will, yeah. But I'm not quite sure where we need to loan people for. We've got 4 informed strikers. We've got a decent midfield. We've got 5 or 6 defenders who can switch around. You know, we've got everything.
I don't know if you saw Maresca's comments about Fatawu not going to the AFCON, but he said he's keeping him on his toes, because he said we've got an agreement in place at the end of the season. He could have gone away to the AFCON and we'd have replaced him, and, you know, he may have lost his place in the team. This gives him an opportunity to convince us that we will buy him next season.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing with him. You know, as soon as he's bought him, you don't know what's going to happen. So he's already playing the mind games with him that you need to not do it over half a season. You've got to do it for a full season, and then we'll make the decision.
You know, it just seems funny to have a manager that seems to know what he's doing, doesn't it?
Well,
not
yet.
Yeah. But I'm going to you're going to be pleased. I'm going to say we're going to end on this one. With no mention of VAR. Look, Burnley in 22-23 got 101 points. Fulham in 2000 and 2001 got 101. 102 points by Newcastle United in 09-10, by Leicester City in 13-14. Sunderland 98-99, they got 105. Reading in 2005-2006 got 106. We're going to smash that, aren't we, Craig?
Well, I did see someone, now whether this is right or not, but I saw someone on another channel. Apparently other channels are available. I didn't believe it.
What were you doing watching other channels?
It came up on TikTok, but they were discussing this very thing about us, the fact, and basically saying that we've got it wrapped up. But I think they said we're on exactly the same points as Reading were at this time of the season. And they went on a run of drawing a lot of games. So although if we carry on this trajectory, yes, we will smash it, I don't think we can take it for granted and lift a foot off the gas.
No, indeed. And I've got to say, TikTok, I agree with you. I'm hooked on TikTok. It shows I have the attention span of a goldfish, because I do love those short clips that come up all the time. It's, you know, when you used to take the newspaper to the toilet, you now take your mobile phone and watch TikTok. Dave, it is only purely, though, is it not, as long as we go up, it doesn't matter whether we smash the record or not.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. I mean, I think I read somewhere where there was about a 2 or 3 year plan to get promoted. If you do it this year, great. If you don't, we'll just reset for next year. So the fact that quarter of the way through the 2 years and we're looking likely is a bonus.
Yeah,
I hope it's not too early for next season's in the Premier.
I agree. That's the thing. You don't want us to come up and do a Burnley, and it's great playing this way against the clubs we are. If we try and do that against the better teams, I think we're likely to be found out with the squad that we've got. So strengthening is going to cost money.
Yeah.
I say that a lot. Look, one word, Burnley. They were going to, and I don't think we were going to storm it. But I said at the start of the season, obviously I would have loved top 2. I would have taken playoffs, but I'd have been quite happy with 7th or 8th if it had meant the following season we had gone up stronger.
Yeah. I think you see with Burnley, and the good thing at Burnley at the moment, and we know football can change very quickly, is that the fans and the club are sticking with it. I haven't heard any murmurings. You probably speak to Dan more often than I do, but I haven't heard murmurings behind that anything's going on behind the scenes with him being replaced. The fans see what he's trying to do, and I think it's really important for our fans and our board to have that realization that if we do go up, it's not going to be easy to stay there.
If we go up, Dave, and we finish 17th, that would be fine, wouldn't it? But do you think fans, if we do Burnley, do you think fans are going to expect a 5th, 6th, 7th position?
No, I don't think so. You asked this question at the beginning of the season, I think, if first month in, where would we finish in the Premier League with this squad? And I foolishly or sillily said 6th or 7th. I'm kind of thinking more 17th, 18th, hopefully above relegation. But you don't know what we're going to add. We're going to make a few bob out of it when we go up. So, and he's not going to be stupid. He's going to buy players that he's got on the radar already, and I think that's the difference now. We've got a manager and his backroom team who know what the hell they're doing, and he's not going to allow the board to dictate to him. I'm sure that's part of the agreement. I'm in charge. Let's do it my way, and they bought into it. So,
and Craig, I mean, Fatawu, Mavrididi, Hermansen, all Premier League players, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's worrying that I can't really think of whether we've made a Rick yet in who we've signed. So chances are there's one around the corner, but no, they're all capable.
A few would say Cassidy, although obviously he's on loan.
Yeah, I think he just needs more game time. I think there's definitely a player there, but he is young, and I think we sort of judge him against the likes of Fatawa, who's 19 and just seems to have no fear. But we definitely would need strengthening. But and the other thing that comes with this is hanging on to them. It's not a case of just strengthening. Hanging on to those players is another thing. There will be, out of all of the players, I expect Hermansen will be the one that is going to be sorted. Premier League teams want football playing goalkeepers.
Yeah,
and he's clearly one. And you see, those teams that are struggling where they don't have one. And Forest, you see he's given their goalkeepers are given quite a few goals away. But again, that you get open players more easily in the Championship than you will do in the Premier League. So there's nothing to say that Hermansen will be just as good in the Premier League in his distribution. I think there's a lot of learning to be done, but the only way to do it is by getting up to the Premier League and then seeing how we get on.
Indeed. And I will end on this one. Burnley having a bad season for me just keeps our feet on the ground a bit, because it just reminds us of what could happen next season, and let's not get carried away. So sorry, Burnley fans. I don't wish you bad luck, and I don't wish you to go down, but it is keeping our feet on the ground, I think. Been a bit of a long one, but it was always going to, as Kathy would say to Dave.
Yes, indeed.
And he needs to go and get that cream mopped up out of his fridge. But thank you very much, guys. Happy New Year to both
Happy
of
New
you.
Year to you too.
it's thank God we had a bad start and a good end to the year. It's rounded it off nicely. There's no preview on Thursday, Craig, so I will see you next week, hopefully, fingers crossed, for the Coventry game. And I will see you on Monday for the debate show, Dave.
All right, mate.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to both of you.
Cheers, Craig. Take
Cheers,
care,
guys.
mate.
Thanks, Dave. Cheers, Chris. Bye everyone.
Cheers. Thank you both. Thank you both. Thank you to both the aforementioned gentlemen who add a lot to the program. They certainly know a lot more than I do. That's it, guys. That was a review of last year. Game of I've said it before. I said it right at the start. It was a year of two halves. Definitely. See you soon, Craig, mate. Take care. Game of two. A year of two halves. But look, it's good. We are going to be back on Saturday, I think it will be, for the Millwall FA Cup. Want to do well, but if Millwall were to knock us out, not the end of the season, is it? We all know going up is the priority. But wish you all a happy new year. Ronald, thank you so very much, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you. Hey, if you like the show, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you like the show, please do smash the likes as well. That really does help us, and it is free. And I tell you what as well, if you do like the show, share it. Share it amongst your friends. Let's get the channel growing in 2024. All you got to do is share it to all your friends, anybody that's not already following us. I will see you. It's an early kickoff. It is on TV abroad, apparently, but it's not on TV in this country. But it is a 12:30 kickoff. And we will see you all early hours. I think it's about 12 o'clock I've done it for on Saturday morning. So get off to bed. Thanks very much, guys. All the best. Thanks to everybody that's been in the chat. Really do appreciate it. If you've been listening on the podcast, on your favorite podcast platform, as always, thank you for lending us your ears. Appreciate you doing that. And take care, everybody. Stay safe and Happy New Year. Goodbye now.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.